It's really hard for the government to say this line of thinking. So we're not giving you an easy way out anymore, and then it's not good politically. But this is the reality. And
Came from a successful private and business background. You didn't need to make the jump into politics. What was it that really drove that decision for you?
messaging, often it was saying like everything's all right, it's all fine, Danny, nothing to look here. It's rude awakening for me because 5% of Singaporeans own 30% of Singapore's wealth. Because capital begets capital, right?
How are Singaporeans going to keep employable ahead of the
The
competition?
idea that you hold one job and one job only, that's not the way life works anymore.
How do you feel about the direction Singapore is going with this AI push?
I mean, unfortunately,
Welcome to Before We Get There, the podcast where we talk about the moments that shape us, the ones we plan for, and the ones we don't. I'm your host, Nicholas Brayman, and today I'm joined by Jeremy Tan. Jeremy ran for Singapore Parliament as an independent with no party behind him, and he pulled the highest vote share an independent has taken since 1972. In our conversation, we talked about what pushed him from business into politics, why he ran knowing he probably wouldn't win, what the campaign cost him, and how he sees the wealth gap in Singapore. We also got into where he thinks the next generation is headed, what a working life looks like once AI can do half the job, what he tells the kids in his own family about finding work they won't come to hate, and much more. Enjoy the show. Hi, Jeremy. Thanks for joining me.
hey, thanks for joining. Thanks for having me, actually.
Yeah, so happy to have you here. So I wanted to start off with, it's been about a year since the election happened.
Yeah.
How do you feel? What have you been up to since then? What's going on?
I've been consulting for a couple of projects. They range from like retail to decentralized finance, and also working on things like pickleball. So like making a pickleball tournament management software for people where like corporate sponsors, they can just issue sponsorships and not have to worry about the management side of it.
Oh, cool.
Been doing a couple of things here and there. Yeah.
And are you looking forward at the next cycle? Is that coming to the picture?
Yeah. I think as the time of the recording, we are just a couple of days away from the recent Workers' Party, Carter conference, and the things that change before the election and after the election. Those are very two separate worlds. So the number of people that may or may not be interested in politics have changed significantly, because there are people who are in their later years of politics and they may be not looking to run the next one, and there might be a new wave to join. And I think those are in my consideration going forward into the next election.
Do you feel like you help inspire some of that new wave since you came from kind of outside of the system?
I think the inspiration may be there for some, I would say, and I hope it's there. I think also with just voters, I would think that the voters also start to see that there are different ways to look at the election. Because if you're voting in somebody that's going to be replacing a backbencher, you're not getting new policies right off the bat, right? You're just getting a ground for where, just normalizing politics becomes better, it becomes more proliferate, right? In that situation, I think voters actually start to see that, hey, putting this person in won't rock the boat, the entire parliament, but we can give a new wave a chance just to see that, given a long period of time, what they're going to contribute at the table, right? Because policy creation, hey, even the strongest opposition parties, they can't change the policies overnight. They can criticize it, but they don't have the super majority. Yeah.
That's one thing I wanted to ask you about is, you came from a successful private and business background. You were kind of, didn't need to make the jump into politics. What was it that really drove that decision for you?
Yeah, I mean, if you look at the way we have our political history in Singapore, the early days of the PAP and with Barisan, it's most of them came from the entrepreneurship background, and most of them wanted to do something about where they have already, gotten some success and built something. And I think it's mostly that is the way you give back, right? Because if we are looking at the next generation of students coming up, or like youth and even middle class or the working class adults, do they have the same opportunities as before? Because you're in tech, and then I'm also kind of in tech, and we've seen the opportunities change dramatically in just a couple of years, right? So I think knowing that these things have undercurrents and where to kind of help steer the boat is where I was trying to make my contribution at. Yeah. Because the next generation is honestly going to have it a bit tough if we're just going to do pure white collar jobs, right? And they've got to find a way to navigate capital, navigate their own branding, navigate their management, and nailing the right industries as well. Because like certain industries that was just kind of normalized for, let's just say, when we first got started working, like copywriting, digital marketing, right? Even building out landing pages. All this is a one click these days, right?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I definitely want to get into that. I think that's a huge. It's going to be really interesting to talk to you about the next generation and the future of the youth and of Singapore. But going back, where did the original idea to run come from? Was it something you've been thinking about for a long time, or where did that idea spark?
Yeah, I think the election during COVID for Singapore, at least, because we were due for an election, I think, before March 2021. I'm not quite sure of the exact legislated date, but for them to have conducted right after giving out massive amounts of subsidies and support schemes during COVID, I think really opened my eyes to the way the new government is run, because it is almost like a sacrosanct unspoken rule that you don't dish out direct handouts in the form of CDCs, in the form of the job support schemes and all that. So when that was broken in 2020, and you've seen many companies, their bosses go take that subsidies, and it didn't really flow down to the workers, right? I think that became a waking up point for us, and especially as being in the Tanjong Pagar region back in 2020, I realized that because there's a huge population of elderly here, and not everybody shares into that benefit, and I think it became more obvious, right, in terms of the aging of the housing, the way the subsidies are being given out, and the messaging. Often is the messaging that they were saying like everything's all right, it's all fine, there ain't nothing to look here, and I think that became a starting point. Yeah. Then subsequently in 22 to 23, that was the removal of lockdowns. So you thought life would get back to normal, and for a while it felt like it was, but GST went from 7 to 8, then 8 to 9, and then lifestyles changed dramatically for people doing businesses, and also people going out and have fun. And as someone who likes to do businesses and go out and have fun, I felt like this is something that's very it is very awakening for me. It's a rude awakening for me, because I can hear the justifications of how you were using most of it to fund future healthcare subsidies, right? But I also have to look at the entirety of all the money, because the whole point of having a very good government, or voting a very good party in to make that good government, is that they can be analyzed thoroughly, right? So I went to look at all the statistics of the government, the bankruptcies, the food, and all those things solidify my position that I think the government is in general working too much in silos, and also in silos of thought. So, and that's when I realized that, okay, I'm not going to be the PM or the leader of the opposition overnight, but I can make a contribution in running for parliament. Yeah.
And so you've mentioned a few times things like getting attacked during the campaign and that sort of thing. Was that a surprise, or did you have a feeling that was coming when you decided to start?
Yeah, I think opening up an attack vector and not letting but managing it was something that I would recommend future politicians to do. Primarily because if you don't, if you market yourself as pure, purely like good vibes only, I think people will be like, no, we are gonna vote you because you recognize the pain they were all going through. We're not going. It's like with Mamdani's Eat the Rich, right? It's like crazy, and then he does the swimming videos, he does the New York Knicks and all that, and then people still vote for him, and then the Democratic Socialists are also growing in strength. Well, it's because the people voting for him are not saying that he's the best or he's the smartest, but he just recognizes the scene, right? And from a values perspective, one can see that it's ridiculous how much wealth is accumulated in certain aspects of society, right? So I think the statistic for Singapore is I would believe roughly about 5% or was it 5 to 10% of Singaporeans, 5% of Singaporeans own 30% of Singapore's wealth. So if we push that number down to 10% of Singaporeans, we might be looking at 50 to 60% of Singaporean wealth. We could say that this triangle exists everywhere, but then the question is, if we are so exceptional, are we allowed to question this as well? Because capital begets capital, right? It's the nature of apex capital is that it has to flow upwards, right? So I think that is the the starting point about like having being criticized online. If you do not manage those criticisms online, I think it's going to be just harder down to campaign later, right? And those criticisms, I think, it's actually pretty normal for every candidate, right? It's like regardless, yeah. Because if you're not being criticized, there's almost nothing worthy of speaking about as well, right? Yeah.
Did it have any effect on your family? Were you like, oh, this was a little bit more than I was expecting, or was it it was pretty easy to deal with?
I think it was the right amount, but there was also, I would say, a concentrated amount of misinformation as well. Coming at very opportune times, I would say, when there were live streams of my rally when I was doing some live interviews, there were some very concentrated efforts to spread misinformation. And I think, that I think this would be the case for any new candidates as well. Because with the anonymity of the internet, I think you're just going to have to deal with it. The ruling party actually has done a fairly good job of trying to enact laws that prevent digital harassment. They also try to enact, I think, just general house rules of like saying, you know what, we're not going to publish this person's school or like what they did in earlier life or that. We're just going to publish this person's interests and the current work they're interested in, right? And I think that's a healthy sign because back in the days in the old politics in Singapore, they would drag out your high school cert and they say, dude, you couldn't do this subject. Yeah, that was the old school politics in Singapore, right? Yeah.
Oh, well, coming from the U.S., every other country looks very functional compared to what's going on there. So then I think you've also shared that you went into the campaign with the hope to win, but not necessarily the expectation. But you end up obviously getting the largest amount of votes as an independent candidate in the last half century. Yeah. What was it like the day after the campaign? Did you have to reframe how you were thinking about the loss? Were you already starting to think about the next steps, or what was going through your head?
I think I was thinking about the overall loss of all the opposition and the number of wins, and I was looking at it from the entirety of everybody's ballot count, right? So if some PAP candidates won by a huge margin that's unexpected, we take that into consideration and we're like, okay, next election, we know this is going to be out of the consideration. If some they kind of lost or they won but closely, and then we also think, okay, next election, what's going to happen? But then we flip side, on flip side, we look at the opposition and we see how many people don't have the opportunity to run the next one because they are going to be very advanced in their age, and how some of them have probably like finished a long-standing career and they also want to take retirement. I think taking all those considerations together with my loss is the way I see it. Because if the parties, if the Workers' Party, for example, advanced 2 more seats in, and the SDP had 1, and the PSP had maybe 2 or 5, this conversation today will be very different because people will be saying Singapore is not ready to have independent candidates. Singapore is only ready to have parties, and they're willing to let parties skip the earning of a single member ward and let fresh parties just go direct to manage a group ward, right? And we're not having this conversation today because the results came out very differently for everybody, right? Yeah.
So you were quite active on like Reddit and Hardware Zone. Reddit is probably my favorite social media platform. I enjoy the like insider jokes and that side of kind of thing that Reddit has going on. But of course, it's anonymous and you get a lot of people saying wild things, unfiltered things. And especially, I'm sure you know if you've been on the Singapore subreddits, a lot of people that are really unhappy with the society and the way things are going. And do you think that those people are loudest there just because they're the vocal ones? Or do you think there's actually maybe more people than we realize that are that unhappy with how things are going in Singapore?
I think both might be true, right? I think actually with Reddit, it's a good... it's obvious that the journalists are on Reddit. It's very obvious. Like their tags are, we kind of know how to identify them. You can also tell who might be fishing for real policy suggestions, going from, let's just say, different ministries and different Institute of Policy for Studies, kind of like research people and everything. But one thing good is to gauge the tail end of the anger, right? Because Reddit, you're guaranteed the tail end of the anger, right? Anything more angry than that, it's not like we have like a 4chan and an 8chan in the US, right? Right. So in Singapore, like Reddit is kind of where the thing ends. Hardware zoners are kind of like, they're now middle age because, back in the day, hardware zoners culture was more of like, let's go to Simlim, let's buy parts, fix the rigs, trade audio and all that. So they're kind of in the middle age. They don't have so much time to go and like post and be angry about things. So Reddit is a very good litmus test for the furthest of where people are angry but much younger, right? That's just a sentiment, right? If you want to know about how, let's just say, people in their 50s or 60s are feeling, you can just post there and they will ask their parents or something like that. Because if you're in the 25s, their parents are in their 50s or 60s, right? So it's like you can just go there and test their sentiment. Yeah, that's at least how I approach Reddit and Hardware Zone, right? So, but the numbers are quite clear because if we look at cohorts of workers in Singapore, the way that, we went from port workers and then to trade salesmen and basically everything, the factories in the Jurong to Bukit Merah and subsequently the biopolice, the fusionopolis and the tech workers, all that. If you look at the cohorts of them moving through, you realize that if they don't have industries that progress, they will roughly be around that same area. They go back to working for companies that depend on government-linked contracts, right? Or the government themselves, right? And it's quite obvious that this underclass, middle class is being mashed up together, and the mobility is not quite the same, right? But I have to give credit to where it's due, which is that society, by and large, you can't really complain, talking about Reddit, you can't really complain about infrastructure, right? You can say the trains break down, but infrastructure works.
Still do, yeah. I was gonna say, people still love to complain.
Yeah, and then it's like, they lynch you if you say it's efficient, but you can't really complain about safety. I think safety is the top ones here. And just stuff working, like you just log on your SingPass and then you get stuff done, right? Just stuff starts working. So I think that is the part that people they can't complain about, and that reality of life is mostly for people not in Singapore, but for us, we're like, okay, we're getting all this done, but it's like, I'm not moving up a ladder, right?
Yeah.
So that's the feeling, right? And they vote based on that feeling.
And I think that feeling is becoming common across the world as globalization has had such a profound impact on people's lives and the opportunities available to them. I mean, completely understandable, I think, in a country with a small population, and you have, a lot of people who want to come here for the opportunities. Do you think that, I mean, not everybody can be guaranteed an easy life. And in some ways, if you look at Singapore, there's a lot of the people I talk to on the podcast, for example, I'm interested in people who've lived outside of the standard path. So I talk to a lot of creatives, a lot of entrepreneurs, a lot of people who've gone out and done their own things, because as an outsider who came here later in life, I see how difficult it would be. I have a young daughter who I plan on raising here. And, I don't want her to feel like she has to hit those milestones, PSLE, whatever university, the BTO, all these things. What do you think is different here for young Singaporeans when they look at the number of EPs, PRs, new citizens coming in that are competing with them for the same jobs, when they look at whether it's realistic for them to go overseas to study or overseas to work, compared to a country that is much bigger in size? They still have a lot of the same complaints about immigration and all these sorts of things. How do you see Singapore as different from the way other countries are dealing with these kind of issues?
I think it's actually a very interesting question, right? And I think the recent Iranian war kind of shows you what the identity of Singapore is, right? And the identity of Singapore is it's always meant to be a trade hub between the East and the West. It's always meant to be a capital hub because of the trade. And as long as we recognize that that is our function in the world, and also a peaceful, trusted brand in the world, Singapore will live a very long time. Right? Of course, if people find a way to have supersonic jet trading, then I think we're done, right? But as long as that exists, there's no reason why we cannot govern the riches that we've been bestowed with properly, right? And that is that we want Chinese, European, Western countries, companies here, so that if everybody has a stake in this place functioning, if everybody has a stake in a global trade hub working well, then we are going to have a long runway. If everybody has a common value in the world saying that we want to have a safe environment for families being raised, then Singapore will have a product to sell, right?
And of course, the big news over the last few years is AI. With all the government initiatives, all the private initiatives. How do you feel about the direction Singapore is going with this AI push? And I mean, that's not unique to Singapore. It's happening around the world. But, we look at kids doing homework with AI and not doing it themselves. We see people in offices, you just relying on it, not necessarily doing the right thing. I think because you're obviously a technology guy, you see its use, the viability, the importance of being ahead as a country and in industry and business. Is there a limit? Are there concerns? Like, how do you balance pushing forward and being innovative and being safe and secure?
I mean, unfortunately, with there are multiple parts to this question, right? Which is that, are we end users only, or can we do something about the investments of AI? Because if you've seen how data centers have exploded, and then right now we're in this era of people chasing the bottleneck trade, basically the upstream effects of having AI as the the user friendly AI. Right? We're seeing this situation happen insofar that many people are willing to poison their waters for is basically every time there's a joke that says every time you say generate me a picture of Pikachu, a child dies of water poisoning somewhere. I would have to say that like Singapore has to be just aggressive users of AI. Like you gotta use it, you gotta know it, you gotta push the boundaries on what your colleagues or even your schoolmates are using it for. How are you using? How am I? Basically, you're creating virtual co-workers and virtual friends to do things for you. Knowing that skill is probably something you have to get cracking right now, right? Like, how am I going to change the way I think about managing leads? Or how do you get more efficient and how do you get more creative? AI is a thing that you have to get good at, right? And it takes practice. That's going to be pushing people to test the limits of their ability to get stuff done, right? And I do believe the answer is that we're going to experience a productivity boom, but those that don't want to participate in the productivity boom will definitely be left out. It's like, if we start pushing out the information, honestly the doom and gloom messaging is necessary. You have to tell people, just like we told you about computers, just like we told you about internet, just like we told you about mobile apps, this is going to come with AI, so you better start getting ready. Right? Even the way you shop, even the way you research about shopping, how you improve your health, everything AI can assist you. I like how much of AI is using. Then of course you have the tail end of the rich and the elite where they don't even use a phone sometimes.
The social media enough.
They just tell the assistant what they need, and then the assistant will figure it out.
I mean, not choosing not to use it is one thing, but I think one part of it that worries me is people like ourselves who have 10, 20 years of experience. We have done it ourselves.
Yeah.
So we're able to tell AI and get AI to do what we need it to do so we can spend more time on strategic tasks or we can be more efficient. But I think a lot of what we're seeing is that there are less opportunities for junior people.
Yeah.
And then how are the junior people going to get enough experience to know what they need the AI to do to actually be more productive and efficient if they aren't able to start in the first place?
So the irony of the junior people is that I think they actually have to brand themselves a lot more than they use AI. And because if you look at where all the middle is being cut out very fast, right? So it's right now it's like a whole chain that's been skipped. It's like you have your management team and you have your country or project heads, and then there's one guy, and then that guy's supposed to use AI for everything. Right, the junior is not being considered, and the kind of like somebody in their 30s are being retrenched. But the one guy that's being considered to be the manager is there because of the trust. People trust that you will figure out how to use AI. But if that guy needs more people under him because he is the best efficient use of, he's the best leader to implement AI for his function and company, then finding a junior that works well with him is probably the next logical step, because the junior will be the ones that I understand your workflow, I understand what you don't like and what you need to check and what you just leave it to wing. So then that is it. But the reality, it definitely hits them. I remember the days when out of college, my brother, he had like no internships and he had like off-the-job offers. These days, that's not the case, right? But, being someone as like a maverick as yourself to, go different countries, live in different places, I think Singaporeans should try that as well, right? And they should have that mentality early. You can see some school programs starting to charge way higher in private school programs just for students to be able to travel outside of Singapore so that they can experience life outside of Singapore. And from there, you realize, oh, okay, you need movement and you need to have this slight discomfort in the way you change the way you do things, guys. And everything in school, challenge everything you learn in school, right? Which the way they used to draw management charts, they tell you about the Maslow, then they tell you about this organizational behavior in school and all that stuff. Challenge everything you learn in school and take as much real world experience as you can. And I think one of the things that as Singaporeans, we we tend to, you talk about people complaining on Reddit or not. We tend to complain a lot, but we also have a lot of opportunities if we really push ourselves, right? Because we can go to China, we can go work in Australia, New Zealand, we can go to work in Indonesia, Malaysia, we can go to work in US, UK. Just you got to push yourself, right? Don't just hope that the government will give you something. The government gives a foundation. Unfortunately, now that foundation is changing, so you just got to change with the foundation, right? I've seen the education system kind of adopt, because when I see my relatives, cousins, they bring home literature assignments, and I'm like, okay, let me go through the hard work of helping you understand like Hamlet and Shakespeare, and then I see, wait, what is your assignment? Oh, my teacher told me to craft a slightly burnt and crisp note that Romeo might have written to Juliet. And then by doing some leaves and making parchment out of normal paper, that is their assignment. And I was like, wow, times have really changed actually, because they want more artistic engagement, they want more thinking in that way. And I think that's how you get interest. If back then it was like, nah, take this book, read it, tell me how this author felt and what this author. That's not the same today, right? So there's a lot of adaptation. We really need to rejig everything we think about, life in general as well, capital structures, because we used to think that the next generation will be smarter and have different industries, but certain industries might have been gone forever, right? Yeah, just like the typewriter maker, just like the point and shoot camera makers, filmmakers, all the certain industries have to go. Yeah. But the ones that do never go, I hope we improve on them, like hawker culture, stuff that we really love, right? Nightlife, never is it going. So we've still got to maintain our presence in those things. And then if you can use AI to do those things better, you will win. But it's also the government's responsibility to realize, hey, guys, you need to give that space. So land and property is one of those spaces. You've got to find ways to make innovation so that this wave of young people coming up can do the things they want to do, right? And not have to worry about, if I have to set up a gym, the minimum cost is 400,000, right? This is ridiculous, in some sense,
Yeah. So earlier we talked about how Singapore's unique positioning is as a capital hub and a trading hub. When we're talking about the Singaporeans, the Singapore worker, and do you think what you just mentioned about flexibility to be able to go to China or US, Australia, is that the value? Like, what can keep Singaporeans ahead in the workforce, rather than we see a lot of companies offshoring to Malaysia, Philippines, wherever. How are Singaporeans going to keep employable and ahead of the competition?
I think one of the things that we will always be involved in terms of, let's just talk about manufacturing first before I talk about capital, right? Whenever any industry wants to produce very high quality parts or chips or goods or anything that is a very high value component in the supply chain, they would skip Thailand and Malaysia first, because for the sake of security of the supply chain, they know goods can flow freely here. So they sacrifice some of the the land cost or that, but they actually prioritize the safety and the security of the stuff being produced here. In fact, that's how we are participating in the chips industry right now, right? So I will see that our next wave will be in the lasers and the robotics and even quantum. There will be certain things that are either designed here, co-packaged here, or transshipped here. So it's there. So are you going to find out which industries are coming here, or are you going to be the ones that bring the capital here? Those are all jobs, right? Or are you going to be the one that starts something? That is entrepreneurship as well. And then the capital hub. Because our customers will be the Chinese that will buy and do certain things with them, the Koreans that will buy and do certain things with them, then the corridor of free trade is something that we need to protect very strongly. There are jobs in there too, your accounting, your even funds and all that. So there are all jobs there. But I would say that for the next generation, they need to think of themselves as entrepreneurs first, because you are now like a 10, 20% department. You need to find that way to become that department for certain people, right? Back in the day, there's always a COO or CTO. No, now you're looking at, you are a whole department, what product are you managing, right? I think that's a very different mindset going back just 5 years ago. Because 5 years ago, you have like I'm the head of culture. I don't know what is the head. What is the head of culture? And then you have like, oh yeah, I do DEI, I do public affairs, and it's oh yeah, it's all culture. Wait, what about HR? No, culture and HR is the same or not the same. And so that era of like title focus is gone. Now we're looking at product and very function focused, right?
And so what you just mentioned about not giving the opportunity, but creating the place where the opportunities can happen for young people to be able to choose if they want to start a business or if they want to open a hawker stall.
Yeah.
Is that something that's the job of the government? And is it the right institution to be able to create that ability to where if you hit all the checkpoints, you go to school, you get a corporate job, you work your way up the ladder, you can do that. If you want to go into the arts, if you want to take another path, you want to go into entrepreneurship, you can also do that.
So I think the failure of the system is the one that it's created too much comfort so that people don't actually think about, hey, maybe I can just change up the way I do things. Maybe I just don't want to do things the same way. We are very quickly entering the stage where if we introduce that culture early on in for the students and the younger guys, that it's like everything you've got to find a creative way to do things. There are no set plays anymore. There are no like there's a specific way to become apart from maybe like a doctor, right? These days, if you take an accountancy degree or you just learn accounting on your own, with the right trainee sheet and all that, some of the professional degrees like law, that you could start implementing AI to improve your chances in other fields. You could do consulting on the side, you could do contracts on the side. But the idea that you hold one job and one job only, and then you go from another job to some weird final state, I think that's not the way life works anymore. Now you're gonna have to engage in new fields, understanding new processes, new people, engaging like sales engagement, retainment of the relationship. You gotta do everything. Why? Because AI helps you cover the hard part, the research, the automating, all this stuff. Now you've got to be the person, and you've got to use AI in such a way that customizes to it, right? It's really hard for the government to say this line of thinking, because for them it's like, hey, we're not giving you an easy way out anymore, and then it's not good politically. But this is the reality, and the faster we educate the people on the reality with like ground programs, which is like, okay, here's how you're going to know the future of jobs, like that's better. Unfortunately, for most of the government, they're still trying to move into a future where they don't have the clearly articulated vision that everybody's going to have to do a bit of something. You don't call yourself like, I want to be an accountant. No, you have accounting knowledge, your accounting skills, but that doesn't mean you're an accountant, right? You could say, oh, I'm a mechanical engineer. Yeah, but that's a skill set. That's just a skill set, right? You came to school to pick up a couple of skill sets here and there, right? And it's, like I said, it's no longer title driven. Yeah.
So when I think a lot of the Singapore government likes to provide a lot of the initiatives like you mentioned, whether it's like SkillsFuture or reskilling, all this sort of thing. Are those effective, and are they going to be effective in the future with the way that things are changing?
Yeah, so one of the gripes that I had, even from a policy standpoint, that I mentioned this during the election, is what are the measures? What are the benchmarks are we looking at when we talk about is being effective, right? Because they don't want to analyze the SkillsFuture program on its own merit. They want to look at the whole of society for unemployment, for median wage, PMETs. There's some value in looking at it that way, but we can't we can't effectively criticize the SkillsFuture program and WSG, now they're merging. If we can't effectively criticize them if you have very broad macro numbers. Like, it's just not granular enough. And there's been no real effort to make it granular enough. For example, let's just say this cohort of people trained in this skill, and that skill, did their incomes go? So can we have a more thorough reports? There are some, and then I think this year the Ministry of Manpower released an occasional report on social mobility, and it indicated that social mobility has went down. So it's actually there are things that are being done out there that show you it's not great. Like we're not overachieving. We're doing certain things right here and there, but we're not on the broad spectrum overachieving to move social mobility back up again. So if maybe in 2 or 3 consecutive years social mobility goes back up, then we can kind of get the rationale of SkillsFuture and Workforce Singapore merging. But until then, we kind of have a black box of criticism. We can't really touch anything. We don't know what we're supposed to examine. We're supposed to examine how much a training provider is charging, because anytime you introduce subsidies, then you're raising the floor of the pricing, right? And the SkillsFuture Singapore people, these are most of them are administrators. Most of them are I would have to say bluntly, part of the bureaucratic system. So if you are going to put people like that in charge, then the only way we get pushback is from people like opposition, because you're not going to get your own guys to criticize it. It just doesn't work. It's just not there's just information hazard over there right now. I would never say things bad about you. You will never say things bad about me. So certain programs like that, good that you pointed out, you can only expect it to be criticized in a public forum. Yeah.
Well, thanks so much for joining. One final question I like to ask all my guests. If I talk to you again in 5 years, what would you like to be able to tell me has happened in that time that would make you feel like it was a success? And then for you, both personally and for Singapore.
I would have to say that if my biological age remains the same or goes down, that will be a success. And personally, for Singapore, we all the stats that I brought up in my campaign, and if we deal with that successfully, I think it will also be a success. And most importantly, even if the opposition doesn't grow in size or whatnot, we should at least retain. So we shall see. Retain its position. So we shall see. I think that and just be able to Singapore still being trusted is something I really care about, because we deal with people from all race, religion, countries, ethnicities in work, right? So it's very important for us to not ever let homogeneity or racism take over, because then you lose out opportunities, you lose out on trust. And I think if meritocracy grows in the next 5 years to reflect this, I think that's very good for Singapore. Yeah.
That would be great.
Yeah.
If people are not following you yet, or they want to learn more about your platforms, where should they go? Places like this. LinkedIn is probably where I'm more active these days. In Instagram, that depends. If there's content to be made, then we're going there. But LinkedIn and places like this is probably worthwhile. Yeah. Okay, great. We'll put the links in the show notes to your website as well. Thanks so much for joining me.
Thanks so much, Nick.
Bye, everyone. Thank you for listening to Before We Get There with your host, Nicholas Brayman. Please like and subscribe on YouTube and your favorite podcast platforms like Spotify and Apple Podcasts. You can also find us on Instagram, TikTok, and Facebook at Before We Get There Podcast. New episodes are released every other Thursday morning. See you next time.